All right, well, I've been looking forward to this talk. Welcome, everybody. So we are all in track 3, the third session of the day, and we're going to be hearing from Gregg Tepper, wonderful horticulturist at Laurel Hill, and he's going to be talking about nature sanctuary, IPM lessons learned, and tips for effective stewardship. Before that, I just want to say hello again. My name's Julie Snell. I serve on the ELA Board of Trustees as Vice President and also on the co-chair of the membership committee. And thank you again for being with us on today and yesterday, and maybe even tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a few in-person events that we're hosting. There's 3 of them. So one will be in Massachusetts at the New England Botanic Garden at Tower Hill. Another one in Mass will be Cape Cod Museum of Natural History, and then one in the Philadelphia area will be at Stoneleigh Gardens. So we hope that you can join one of those. And then maybe even next year, we'll have more possibly in your area. That was something that I looked at this morning in the main room. You can go to the tab, the map of all where we're tuning in from today, and it's really a wonderful it's really great to see. So there is a big showing from New England and the Mid-Atlantic, but we are marching across, and there's some Cincinnati and Ohio and Arkansas and Virginia and Colorado, and I understand Canada, but it didn't get a pin. So that's interesting to see, and to see the ELA membership expand like that. So ELA programs are driven by interests and volunteers that make these events possible. And we are interested to know what you'd like to see. So please tell us and fill out that form, the evaluations after the presentations. That's really important to us. And then also, if you'd like to be more involved with ELA, we would love to have you. So if you have energy and time to spare, it's a great way to get involved with ELA is join one of the committees that put together programs like this. We have the Education Committee, the Publications Committee, the Membership Committee, and the soon-to-be formed Advocacy Committee. And we're always looking for new faces and voices. So if you're interested, please get in touch with us. You probably know by now, but as we get going with this presentation, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat, and we'll be watching that, and we'll review that at the end. Also, there's space in the main space to list for job openings. It is that time of the year. Things are starting to happen. So if you have a job that you want to post, feel free to do that, or take a look there if you're looking for one. So without further ado, we're going to get to my friend Gregg Tepper. So Gregg Tepper is the senior horticulturist at the Arboretum at Laurel Hill in Philadelphia. The Arboretum, which is ArbNet Level 2 accredited, comprises 2 historic cemetery properties, 78-acre east property in the East Falls section of Philadelphia, and the 187-acre west property in Bala Cynwyd. Together, the 2 properties total an impressive 265 acres of rolling hills, complete with stunning viewpoints, featuring the Arboretum's living collection of trees, shrubs, and gardens. Here, horticulturist Gregg co-manages the horticulture interns and staff, and he has guided the creation of and stewarding practices ecologically sound the garden areas, both at the east and west properties. Our Old Mortality Rock Garden, the Historic Medallion Garden, and the award-winning Chapel Garden. He has been instrumental in defining stewardship of Valley View Green, Ballad Green, and Nature Sanctuary. Nature Sanctuary is a multi-award-winning site, gold certified green burial landscape. Gregg's work brings him much satisfaction by having various opportunities to educate the public and to collaborate with fellow public gardens and arboreta. His vast knowledge is a key advantage in both updating current gardens and creating new ones, where he works closely with specialty nurseries to custom grow unique and garden-worthy plants of best quality. By selecting choice plants, the gardens then become diverse plant communities benefiting us and wildlife alike, and creates what he likes to define as gardens to feel good about. Definitely. So without further ado, Gregg.
Thank you.
Take it away.
I've had the pleasure of knowing Julie for quite a few years, and the quality work she does as a designer, and of course her business, Redbud Native Plant Nursery, we have certainly made use of at the cemetery. It's a great to have such a thing nearby. So I'm going to share my screen, and we can get started here. All right.
Thanks, Greg. We can see it. Looks good.
Great, awesome. So you're going to see I'm going to do a little bit of repeating of what Julie went through, but just briefly, I've got myself surrounded by a lot of wonderful plants here. You can't help it this time of year, especially. So as a senior horticulturist, I have been able to meet so many incredible people in our industry, and I just want to do a thank you to all the people that spend extra effort to educate themselves about best management practices, what can they do, and to keep ecology in the forefront of their focus with building landscapes. And that's so important. And I absolutely have to do a shout out to my coworkers at Laurel Hill, Aaron Greenberg, our breeder manager, Joanna Cosgrove, Allison Whittam, Alicia Applegate, and Victoria Fuentes, and Brendan Mishinsky. So we've got some really talented individuals there, and you'll get to see some pictures of them today. So anyhow, so we talked about east and west locations. The East Falls section is right inside the city, and it is a very historic area right on the Schuylkill River. So you look down at the river. Laurel Hill West in Bala Cynwyd, that's how that's pronounced. That is in Montgomery County, just outside the city. One of the things about the East Falls section is, for those of you that may know of Grace Kelly, the beautiful actress who moved to Monaco. Kelly Drive was named in honor of her family. So here's East. Beautiful. Both locations are on the historic register, and it is also considered a sculpture garden. So it's a beautiful place. And this is 78 acres, and then there's west, and that's 187. So that's what combined creates our Arboretum at Laurel Hill, which is a level 2 accredited. So we're going to focus today on Laurel Hill West, because that's where the green burial area is, called Nature Sanctuary. I'm going to tell you, those that may not know what green burial is, a little more about that, but the focus will be on its care, maintenance, nurturing, and I call it stewardship. So it was founded in 1869 as West Laurel Hill Cemetery, and it was privately owned, non-denominational. So today we call both cemeteries are included in Laurel Hill. We have Laurel Hill West and East. So, but it's a nonprofit, 501c13. So we are focused on care, and with the Arboretum in place, we are looking at care of the whole collection. We have a living collection of trees and shrubs, and it's amazing. That's managed by Aaron Greenberg, our Arboretum manager, who is a master arborist himself. And so Laurel Hill, the cemetery, provides all the services you would expect of a traditional cemetery. And this is a cemetery very much like Mount Auburn in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's a rural cemetery, meaning it was during its time of creation, it was a landscape cemetery featuring trees, shrubs, plants, and they were literally created like parks, and that was a new idea in the mid 19th century. So the funeral home provides the typical funeral services that are needed, including a green burial service. And so we're among the nation's leader in the death care industry, and absolutely so when it comes to green burial, because we have created models, 3 of them, that are using native plants and creating a naturalistic style, some more so than others, but all dedicated to sustainable best management practices. So And we're going to focus on the one at West, which is Nature Sanctuary. So it's certified by the Green Burial Council. And you might say, so what is that? Well, that is verification means we follow a set of standards that they have created that ensures quality and consistency in its care. So best stewardship practices and all the things that go along with that. Natural resources, big time. And I love to do reuse, reduce, recycle, especially with organic matter. So little things that maybe you already do, or maybe you do not do, that I will be able to showcase. And sometimes it's the little details that can make a big difference. So, and it's quite a beautiful place to see in all seasons. So you're going to get to see various pictures of it today. And in 2018, we applied for and received certification from for the gold level Sustainable Sites Initiative. And I'll go into that a little bit more in a couple other slides, but that was a really, really big honor. And what that means is we adhere not only to the Green Burial Council standards, but we also adhere to Sites Gold. That means every single thing we do, we consider its ecological impact. What vendors do we order from? What's their carbon footprint? Are they using natural soil media and things like that? That's really important. So, and this was also a real honor in 2022. So to have the Land Ethics Award, it's just, again, an affirmation from another quality organization that we're doing the best things with native plants and with the ecology. So the Sustainable Sites Initiative has standards that are definitely meet or exceed the Green Burial Council. The Green Burial Council looks at burial as well as the stewardship of the land. And ours, the Sustainable Sites Initiative, is looking at the land. So best management practices with the environment in mind. And of course, native plants. Wonderful, wonderful. That is one thing that has been the joy of all joys, is to use so many different types of native plants in these landscapes and see how they've created communities and they interact and the people interact with them and the wildlife, of course. So I got to witness a woman who had never seen an American goldfinch before, and to see her witness it, and she was just astonished. So no chemical pesticides or herbicides are used, which is a big one. The only thing I use for weed control, which we'll get into later, excuse me a second, is an acid called vinegar. And I'll tell you more about how effective that is at controlling things like mugwort. We all love that plant, don't we? Yes. So all the power equipment that is used, including for the burials are hand dug. There is no battery powered machine right now that can get in there. So what that means is the outline of Nature Sanctuary, its borders, no fossil fuel using machine or tool can go into its boundaries. Anything we use that is mechanized will be done with a rechargeable battery. And we have found some of the best products to utilize for caring for this, and that's what I'll share with you today. So again, it's going to be lessons that I've learned, and it's also going to be really effective tips. So one of the things that makes Nature Sanctuary unique as a model is it was, this idea came from Adam Suplee, who had a design business in the past, and it's the idea of going through multiple stages. And so right now it's in the meadow to just beginning successional forest stage. And you'll see that in the pictures. So, and other things about natures is that by choice of the stewardship, we have native plant community that's incredibly diverse. You may not and will not probably see it in the wild, so diverse. I've saw something similar up on the Blue Ridge Parkway. So it's a wide variety and use of many different plants that extend not only the bloom season, and that's done for aesthetic appeal, but also first and foremost for its ecological role in helping our native bumblebees and other insect pollinators like wasps and beetles. So, and it's naturalistic in design in that it did not happen by nature, but it follows nature's processes and nature's I would say process for the plants to grow together and interact. And it looks very convincing and not contrived, not like we planted things in a row or everything was looked like it had not evolved naturally. And it's an acre in size, but we've been able to establish an incredible balance between making it naturalistic, serving as a habitat, and so forth, and serving wildlife, but still being a place for green burial and for the public to walk through and enjoy. So this is a picture of it. This is quite a few years ago. I'm going to say 3 to 4. And there were some species that were very dominant there, but it gives you an idea of what when you enter the space, what the plant material looks like of different sizes, heights. And so the walls in the front are places with granite. Then that's where the memorials are located. So there's not stones at each person's place in the green burial area. And this is another shot showing at where the sign is there, as you can see in the bottom corner. That was our active area at one time. That was where the burials were happening. And so as the active area fills, we cover it with leaves, and the leaves have made a huge difference in the soil, and I'll get to that later on. But they also cover the newly disturbed ground for not only appearance and making it look consistent with the rest of the areas, but it also suppresses weeds that have been brought up and weed seeds from the disturbance. And this is late in the fall, and you wouldn't guess that this is almost close to October 10th. So it's just about really a good shot showing a lot of the early fall flowering and so forth in the area. And here it is on the other side, and this is about early September. So we have a variety of different types of plants. And what you're seeing there is Canada goldenrod. Yes, and you might say, oh, isn't that invasive? Yes, it is. And it's something we battle quite a bit, but because that's become the newest active area, we decided to leave it there. It filled a really good role. It definitely benefits pollinators, and we'd reduced its numbers in order and replaced with other things. Don't totally eliminate it, but do reduce it. So the purple there is New England aster. Here's another great shot. You'll see New England aster on the right, and the darker purple on the left is the smooth aster. And another plant I absolutely adore is the red hibiscus coccineus. A great plant for a punctuation of color. It rises above everything else. And interestingly, the deer don't typically bother that. But this is just a great photograph of looking at 2 models for burial. There's the traditional, which has the granite monuments, and then there is Nature Sanctuary. So at this point, Nature Sanctuary is completely sold. It's not completely filled, but people that knew they wanted to be buried here have purchased. And it's what I hear quite often is, I really wanted this spot. People don't choose exactly where they go, but they chose Nature Sanctuary, and they say, I wanted this because I like the idea of being planted in a garden and a space that is ecologically stewarded, ecologically soundly stewarded, I should say. So there's just so many different, a diversity of plants that it is, I can't even keep up with the plant list. We do have one, but I'm always bringing in new different types of coreopsis, of helianthus, of heliopsis, of asters, and so many different types of plants to create a diversity that is helpful, again, to ecology. So take a look. And that is mid-September. If you look at the frame to the left, you'll see an area where there is bare ground and leaf mulch, but you'll see young plants. That was our original active area. And within less than a year of burials there, with the burials happening, we put the leaf mulch down and we start planting. And then within 6 months to a year, it's filled in. And as the burials are completed, we also start to add shrubs and young trees. So we are replicating the ecological succession. So the best part, I've had so many things I wanted to share in my lessons learned. And it's lessons, I would call it for Nature Sanctuary, lessons learned, and also lessons, I would say, affirmed from earlier in my gardening career and life. I've always loved native plants since I was a kid. And it's something that just made sense to me because I saw them growing wild and I liked the wild idea. But you also, when you do that kind of naturalistic gardening, you realize there are some people that don't necessarily align with a naturalistic style or somewhat meadow-esque or anything like that. So you're going to see one of the lessons learned is how do I take that style and make it acceptable to most people? Not that I have to garden in a way that I get approval from people, but I also have to manage expectations of the organization, our board, and the people coming to purchase the burial rights to these areas. And so it's all really important, and you can strike a very good balance. So patience and perseverance. I'm not sure how I underlined that E, but I did. They are huge to success. I have sometimes tried to practice and thought, oh gosh, I cut it back too early or whatever it was. I've lost it. But I've learned to be patient. And if I make a mistake or whatever it may be patient, watch, and persevere. And it has always paid off for me. And you have to manage expectations. So you may have people that are giving feedback and saying, this is this or this is that. What I try to do is I try to think about in the past what people have said. And I learned a great tip from Larry Weiner years ago. To have you have an amazing meadow and it can have all sorts of things in it. But if it is just in the middle of an area and it's bordered by asphalt or a fence, it looks messy to people. But put a 3-foot periphery of mowed grass and all of a sudden it looks intentional. There's a lot to be said for that. So in what I do at Nature Sanctuary is I maintain the paths, keep the plant material not from falling over too much, sweep regularly, rake, and keep that neat. And it's amazing how all of a sudden there's plants flopping or the plants that don't look as controlled as sometimes people wish they were. It makes them more acceptable because they see that someone is caring and managing for the area. So observe, analyze, and evaluate the space in every season. Now, this might be something some people go, well, yeah, sure. But I mean, really look at everything. And this is some of the best ways I've been able to control invasive weeds. If you've ever dealt with bed straw, in the month of August, it's a nightmare. It gets all over you, the seeds gets all over you. It's impossible to pull out. It almost seems worthless. But early in the season, it starts as a super tiny, small little seedling with a itsy bitsy taproot, and you can go boop. But if you don't observe that and see what's there, you won't be able to take care of it. So timing on that is key. Oh, I can't say this enough. There are certain weeds, lamium, they're winter weeds. They start in the winter as little tiny things. All weeds do, don't they? Yeah, well, this is the time to best control them. As long as that tiny weed is pulled out, and you might say, I'm not going to be able to do this in a 1 acre property. Correct, you won't. But what you can do is you can disturb those little seedlings. And on a relatively warm day, you can spray them with vinegar. And I'll talk more about that. But sometimes it is just a really good thing if there's no snow on the ground. It might be 40 degrees, but to just go through and find the lamium, to just use a hoe and just pull the tops off. Do that incrementally as you go along, and it's amazing. And then also with timing, I do a great deal, and I should say we do at the cemetery, leaf mulching. It has been so many advantages to it, but as weed control, put down at the right time of year in March, you can make a huge difference in your weed infestation later on. And then consistency of care, huge. Be consistent. And it's hard for one person to always provide that consistency. So sometimes you need help. And if you have a team of coworkers or you have a contractor that can help with some of those specific jobs, like spreading leaf mulch, it's going to be a game changer. And you have to know the scope. Can you handle it alone, or do you need to have help? When I say consistency of care too, I need to go back in multiple times and find that dreaded porcelain berry, because it hides at every other time of year. But timing, going back to that, if you spend your winter going after different types of invasive trees, saplings, after vines, you can make a huge difference. And again, I'm talking about a 1 acre spot here that I work on for the most part on my own. I do have help and support at times, which is great. So this is really for a smaller scale property. But if you have multiple people caring for larger scale properties, it can be managed and stewarded well. So success and failure, best ways of learning. And I had a really good one years ago when I was at Mount Cuba. We had a tree come down, and the tree knocked over the deer fence, and the deer came in overnight, and they completely wiped out the majority of the Stokesea. They just left these ragged, tagged pieces. And then when the rabbits found them, they took care of the rest. So they were down to nearly nothing. Well, I thought, oh, I failed. I've got this is terrible. Or what normally would look like a really bad situation. Once the deer were controlled and the rabbits were controlled with the repellents or the deer fence going back up, I watched as the Stokesea not only came back well, but multi-crowned and bloomed even better. Go figure. Lessons learned from successes and failures. And then, of course, be open to new ideas and methods. And that's why we attend the Ecological Landscape Alliance Conference. So many great things to share, to understand, and be aware of. So even though it may not be something that is a concern to you at the moment, such as maybe the issue with the beaches or a new invasive plant, it's something to know about, because it will and can very often enter your area much later on when you least expect it. And we experience that with the lanternflies. Know your plants. You might also say, well, of course, but know your plants and how they grow, interact, and how they die back. Any of you know of Ampilaster carolinianum, the climbing aster? Beautiful southeastern native, and an amazing thing to have in the garden. It is the only aster that is woody. You don't cut it down to the ground. If you do, you just keep setting it back. So you leave it alone. And that's when you know your plant and you know how to care for it. Also, when things go dormant, it's good to observe to see what their dormancy looks like penstemon, things like that. And when you know your plants, you're going to know how to arrange them, protect them from herbivory, and also garden with them effectively. And of course, encourage natural processes. When you have a balance returning, success endures. So my number one with that is leaf mulch. So when I first came on board at Laurel Hill, and Aaron and I were working together, I suggested putting leaf mulch down in Nature Sanctuary that had been like a meadow. It was full of a lot of invasives, but the idea of using leaf mulch is we had it that was harvested from the property, and putting it down helped to keep the worst of those invasive weeds from coming up. They still came up, but when I cut them with, you'll see my method, it weakened them. And when you're cutting, spraying with vinegar, cutting, spraying with vinegar, you reduce their biomass in those roots, and they eventually can't keep up. Plant some wonderful natives around them and shade them. They hardly stand a chance. Will they always be there? Yes, they come in, they seed in, but you turn the tide and it can make a huge difference. And often it's not simply what, but how we do what we do. That is incredibly important. So let's get to the tips for effective stewardship. And how are we doing for time? Good. All right. Super. Deer and rabbits. Oh gosh. I know. But, oh gosh, aren't they cute? So what do? We got to figure out something. No, I don't think that quite worked. And Elmer, he tried, but never seemed to be able to get it. What we do is use repellents. And these are 5 products I found to be very effective. And some of the products I've used about 5 years or less. Some products I've used for over 20 years and guaranteed success. So I'm going to go through those with you. Deer scram. So this is a granular repellent. And we're going to learn about what's in these and about how they work. Because often when people apply a repellent, they might read the directions about how much to take the concentrate and add water. They may pay attention to that, or they may want to they may say, oh, I'm not going to follow that, or they're not exacting. You have to use the product to see where it works and what it works on the best. So this is a granular, and this is what's in it. It is a mixture of blood meal, garlic, red pepper, and eggs, interestingly. Yeah, so the thing with this is you'll notice red and brown lettering, okay? So the red is a trigger of a strong fear response. Fear is huge with repellents and deer and rabbits because they smell it and something instinctively in them says, I got to stay out of here. I got to no, this is no good. Then there's what I call the horseradish aspect. So it's an ingredient that triggers a strong scent response and negativity to it or resistance to it. That is typically things in the mint family. We smell lavender, mint, and those wonderful fragrances that agastache often can have, but the deer hate them and it repels them, interestingly. Yeah. So another product that I absolutely love is plant skid. Now it comes in a variety of different products. I have found that the granular and the concentrate that's pre-mixed not the one you mix yourself. The pre-mixed concentrate is much better to use. And what's great about this is it effectively works on voles and rabbits. You need to read how to apply it for this to be a so, but it's also good for deer. You're going to need to also understand you're going to have to invest a good deal of money in your repellents. They are expensive to make and produce, and so they're going to be expensive to buy. But if you learn how to use them efficiently and for their best use, you will not spend more in the plant repellent than you will probably have to spend in replacing the plants or financial loss because of a nursery crop that you may have lost. So, and these are the variety of different types of products that they sell. I highly recommend them, and it's pre-mixed granular, and it's dried blood and vegetable oil. So that again is very effective for rabbits, voles, deer. You know, that's the number one thing. And repels all. This is, oh, I love this stuff. So it's a granular, really fine, and it is whole egg solids. And it's in eggs, the yolk has sulfur. And it's been proven by studies that the sulfur creates that same kind of fear response in deer and almost all other animals. So the cloves and garlic oil are just something they don't like. But just think, if you have problems with raccoons, you have problems with aardvarks, you could be in Texas, you know, that's very possible. Chipmunks, squirrels, but also I know up in upstate New York, that porcupines can be a big issue. I know of someone who had a beautiful apple tree orchard, and the porcupines were really making havoc of that. And this is effective on them, and it lasts up to 2 months. So really, I think that's a great thing. So, and deer stopper. So there's a deer stopper 1 and a deer stopper 2. As I understand it, the only differences are in concentration of the 3 ingredients. And this is one I learned to use at Mount Cuba Center in 2005. And there was one time where I had just finished spraying it before a tour started, and people loved the smell and said, "What is that flower that I'm smelling?" And I said, "It's actually our deer stopper repellent." So when it's first applied and it's fresh, you smell the rosemary oil and mint oil, and it's a nice smell. And then there's emulsified eggs. The emulsified eggs do 2 things. They provide that egg with the sulfur and that repellent smell for the deer. They also are protein, so they stick onto the leaves and they become hardened, and they won't wash off with rain. So this product can last up to 30 days with an application of, that is the concentrate watered down. You can use the concentrate as well, and it's more expensive, but it's much more stronger smell for sure. And this has been a game changer for us. Trico Pro. The great thing about this, it is 6.4% sheep fat. It's made in Austria, and it's imported. And for the first time, we used it at the cemetery, and we no longer need to use the tree protection for buck rub, nor do we need to use cages on our Hamamelis. So the amount of time for the cost of this, which is $250 for a 2.5 gallon concentrate, it's a lot of money. However, the amount of money we were having to utilize in buying cage material, stakes, and of course, employ time to be able to distribute them throughout the cemetery for the buck rub season, which goes from September 1st to just about the end of December, in that time frame. And then we have to go around and collect all the cages and the rebar and store them. So now that we have this, we are finding we do not have to do that anymore. We have to keep up with the spraying, and that's important. So this is one of the best things, and it works. Allowing plant material to remain is another thing that can be very effective with deer. They have not very sharp teeth, and they'll get down, but if there's something in their way, they will often browse and move away. They tend to be relatively lazy, even if they're really hungry. It's just one of the things about deer. And I like to leave the seed heads because there's many reasons actually. Not only are we trying to keep the deer away, they're attractive. They provide seeds for the winter for those birds, such as American goldfinch and others, even juncos that will get them on the ground. But it's also important because many of our solitary bees use the stems to overwinter as well. That's something I'm in the process of learning more about, but I like the idea of winter beauty and seasonality with our natives. And so the application of the deer stopper is something we've been able to use. Small little sprayers or hand pumped, and we're able to put them on the different plants, and it lasts for pretty much up to 30 days. If you are finding a great deal of herbivory, it doesn't hurt to overlap and use it in 2 to 3 week increments. Invasive weed control. So, Julie, I remember when we were originally talking about this, you said, "Oh, yeah, that mugwort." Well, there it is. When I first started working in Nature Sanctuary, this is what took over the Heliopsis and the Monarda fistulosa. It just dominated. And it does because it spreads by stolons. And when it's not curtailed, it quickly takes over. And it's a stoloniferous weed. So what we did was we decided we're going to get really nasty with this darn thing. And we decided to use the trimmer. This has been a game changer for me. So the great thing about this, it's battery powered. It is a hedge trimmer, and I can use it for cut downs of things like this. And it makes a world of difference because this is when you're weakening an established established invasive weed population. This is the first stage. Get it cut down. Do not allow it to make photosynthesize and make more biomass for the roots. Then that's the hedge trimmer, one of the ones that's offered by Steel. And then also, let me go back just in case of you want to write that down. I've been really very happy with their products. We have a local vendor, supplier that also repairs them, and also we can get replacement batteries. They're lithium ion batteries, and with as each year goes by, they're making their value, I would say, or efficacy, their ability to work well, extended, which is great. So, and then vinegar. Let's look at this. Vinegar cleaning solution, hundreds of uses. Yep, exactly. But this is 30% horticultural vinegar. You can buy this in enormous vats, just like we do. We fill jugs, put them in the sprayer, and as long as you rinse your sprayers out with regularity, you can use almost any type of sprayer. Eventually, the seals might wear out, but it's an easy spray, and you can use 30, 40, 50%. It burns the leaves. I've used it on English ivy, poison ivy. You just have to remember, you burn the leaves off, they're going to take the biomass from the roots to make new growth, and then you hit that new growth and burn it again. They run out of energy eventually. Same with the mugwort. So what we did in this area, this was, as you can see all the way back, it was primarily mugwort and other invasives, and with regular cut downs, like the ones there, those are all the new emerging weeds, and I was able to hit them with vinegar and brown them, and that's how I was able to control that. Also in between the rocks and along the fence, all with vinegar. And just a year later, how much of a difference when you start to get in these big grasses that shade, so those invasives don't stand as much of a chance, and use of consistency of care with the vinegar. How are we doing for time? We okay?
Got about 15 or so
Okay.
minutes before
Great.
questions. Yeah.
Super. All right. So, soil stewardship. This is a big one. Now, what we do and use not only helps its fertility, not only helps its structure, feeds the soil biology, the microorganisms, and does weed control. Well, it's finely chopped leaves. And this is a great picture of what it starts to break down into once the leaves decompose. And you might say, gosh, in a meadow? Well, yes. And if you stick to your timeline and you put it down at the right time, a stack of leaves, big fluffy stack of leaves, 10 inches even, it will break down. It's mostly air and water, and as it breaks down, it is broken down mostly by a fungal. It's a fungal interaction, and many of our plants and our trees like fungal forward or dominant soils, and so it's soil that is alive, and many of our soils are disturbed, and so this is a great additive. And it's just put on top of the soil. So I have found it to be really work well. I have not had an issue with the invasive worms, because if you get a balance and you have the right things in place, they don't stand a chance. They like to be right in that duff, and plenty of moisture for them to get through that. The leaf mulch. So if you put them into a balance where they're interacting with other I would say other predators are there. Sometimes the predators can be things like bacteria and fungi that can attack the worms. So the biochar blend, this is such great stuff, and I don't use it. I do not use it really for its nutrients. I use it for its replacement of carbon in the soil. So we dig it into the soil each time we plant, and it provides carbon. And what it does, as far as I feel, is replaces the carbon return and nutrient return that came from natural wildfires, which no longer occur. So unless burns happen, controlled burns, but we're not able to do that in the cemetery. So I use this as the closest replacement to being able to bring char back in, and carbon. And the carbon is what the soil microbes need in order to survive, along with their own food source. So leaf mulch, finely shredded, is the best. So some of the leaves, like ginkgo and maples, will stick together and make a really hard, difficult layer. But if you can shred them, they're an excellent additive of organic matter. And I've also been experimenting with different type of mycorrhizal inoculants, endo and ecto. Endo is primarily affects trees and helps trees. And so this is something I encourage you to research more. Once you get a woodland soil well balanced, I've been able to use woodland duff in small amounts from a woods brought into another area, and it introduces the same kind of fungi and bacteria that are naturally there. You can use inoculants, but what I've been learning is that oftentimes they are just not, their efficacy period is very limited. So much more to learn about that one. And there's the leaf mulch. And you can see that looks really thick. You might be saying, ooh, is that up against the trunk? Well, they are leaves. They break down quickly. And the tree trunks, you wouldn't want to bury them in 12 to 14 inches of leaf litter. However, the tree flares, as long as you don't go too far up, they will be just fine. And this is what helps to turn the tide on weeds, help to keep soil moisture at a good level, and also add organic material to help build a better structure. And that's just showing how we're putting it down around the rain garden in nature's. So this is one of my favorite tools. And for cutbacks at the very end of the season, this is what I use. And of course, you got to have your protective gear. That's important. But love this. And my coworker, Jo, she was able to get a video showing me using it. Chop, chop, chop. So you might say, so why the little pieces? That's because if you allow the bigger pieces to fall as they are, they won't break down as quickly as when they're in smaller pieces. It also helps them distribute better, and then we put our leaf mulch over the top. By the time end of May, early June it comes around, you can barely see. So much of that has already decomposed, and the nutrients have been brought up by the plants. And this is after a cutback. So wintertime, timing is everything. Wintertime, you can get so much done. How many of you, horticulturists or any other vocation, have you had people say, so what do you do in the winter? I love that question. And that's when I tell them a lot of my preparatory work for the garden season. So things like here's Joe doing cutting back on some vines that really needed it. And that makes a big difference. Proper pruning this time of year and getting them ready to just bud forth. And then, of course, this is the time to do staking and pruning of trees and so forth. And Allison and Alicia are taking care of that here. So take a look at this. These are some of all the invasive trees coming in. It's a wide variety. And you would say, oh, you just pull them out of the soil, they break off, you cut them. Well, they love that. They just emboldens, they come back better. You need to pull out the tap roots. So important. And on some of them, this is one that at the base by the roots, where it was cut back multiple times with with the loppers or something. Well, it just keeps coming back and keeps coming back. And so I had to fully dig it out. And once I did, I realized how many times it had been cut, which was by me and others, but the root system was so strong, and so it needed to be dug out. And so these are some I dug out, and you can see the one on the far, pretty much on the right, the longer one. See how thick that taproot is, and any idea what that might be? Anybody? Might surprise you. Yeah. Well, see, I wouldn't know your guess right now. I'd have to look in chat, right? But anyhow, that is a hickory, and hickories, even 6, 7 inches tall, put down incredibly deep tap roots. So this is the way to dig them out. That is for sure. And a variety of heavy roots and root systems really help them to stay put. Good time to do our tree pruning, that's for sure. You can see the structure of the tree without the leaves and be able to provide staking or any other kind of formative pruning that needs to be done. This is a sycamore, and so we're definitely going to be pruning it to get a central leader back in. And another game changer for us has been this soil auger, battery powered, and that's been huge. It's the Landworks electric auger with the 6-inch bit. Even our operations crew has used it at times in nature sanctuary and elsewhere to be able to dig into a hole, to be able to just kind of start to get into the soil to really dig and even loosen rocks sometimes. That's Alicia and Brendan McNabb working Planting Nature Sanctuary with me, and then also Brendan Mashinsky. And I love this because he's just looks so proud of that auger. It really looks great, and what a difference. That is a game changer. You can see in the background all the gallon pots we had, and the 6-inch auger bit just makes it go so smoothly. So other game changers has been Deer Stopper and the Treco Pro, as I mentioned. So the great thing with Nature Sanctuary, it's effectively stewarded. And so by that, it is thoughtful of our native insects, the mammals, the birds, the plants, all the different trees, the diversity of plants that are there, as well as the soil health and microbiology. And it serves as a place for the public that come into the park to, the cemetery, to use it as a park, and they see a beautiful landscape and don't realize it's also a green burial area. They just see it as a beautiful place, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's also important to know that it supports life in a purposeful and sustainable manner. It's not just what we're doing, it's how we're doing it. And the results are very, very rewarding. And last but not least, it's a place where those that have had their loved ones buried there can find the beauty in nature and find comfort and peace, which they definitely do. So I wanted to thank you very much. This is my email, should you wish to contact me. And also, I would really encourage you to look on our website at all the other offerings our Arboretum has and programming that we do. It is open to the public, and it's a pretty special place. So do come visit sometime. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Another amazing talk. Um,
My
Something
pleasure.
that we do have a bunch of questions, and I'm going to get to that, but something that came to mind just at the end when you were talking about sort of like, effective stewardship, it made me think, how does it persist? So how does it go beyond you and your team? Do you have a stewardship manual that you've developed or?
Great question. And in one of my lessons learned, I had to delete that because I had so many that I wanted to say, but that is a very good key point. Thank you, Julie. It's teaching coworkers, it's teaching interns, teaching volunteers, and any other opportunity you have to share the information, such as a forum or platform like this, really huge. And yes, I'm in the process of wrapping up the stewardship manual for Laurel Hill. It is for the green burial areas. We are, in order to receive certification, green burial certification, we must provide a green burial manual, stewardship manual. And we have two newer green burial areas that will be certified shortly once we get the stewardship manual out. And so it's something that it will be available to anyone who would like to see it once it's completed. And it's been a real honor for me to be able to do that document because I've learned so much and it's a great way to pass the information along. Thanks for
That's
asking.
great. Excellent. So we have time for questions and we don't have to move to the speaker garden. We're going to stick here until the final keynote. But I'll just jump into the questions now. So, one question was, do you practice early season height reduction, like that Chelsea chop, on the taller plants like New England asters and others?
Yes, excellent question. And yes, I do. So it depends on my timing. Sometimes, if I have certain tasks been able to be completed, such as this year, we're on a really good time frame, I will be doing that. One of the number one plants that I find I have to do is Heliopsis, Helianthoides. And you can only do it till about no later than mid-May, because after
Wow.
that, the stumps just produce growth. So it comes from the base. If you cut it all the way down in like mid-May, it will make new growth and not be nearly as tall. So I do that
Okay,
along the edges primarily. Yeah.
great. Um, So about all these animal repellents, right? When you consider how and when and where you use them, you mentioned about smell. And so this question is about, do those bad smells, do they affect humans and how they interact with nature's sanctuary? Do you worry about making the gardens or the paths smelly with the use of these?
Great question. So all of these, once they're sprayed as a concentrate, the granular has it's a scent that you can smell if you open the container. Once it's distributed, we cannot smell it. The animals can. And then the spray-on products, once they dry, you just can't smell them anymore, which is great. So it's never been an issue, and they don't hurt wildlife or even pets and so forth, people that bring their dogs into the cemetery. So, and
Great,
non-toxic to us. Yeah,
excellent, thank you.
sure.
Do you have to rotate the products? Um,
Oh, okay. So I have not had to do that rotating because of ineffective use with the a lot of the urine products you will, because the lesser the smell, as it decreases, the fear factor goes down with the deer. But I shift around where I'm using them based upon the plants growing. So I wouldn't put granular down in something really tall or protected by other plants, but I would put in a spray around the edge or a granular repellent or an entry points where they could come in. So I do utilize it in different areas that way.
So it's more for the intended use versus worrying about desensitizing the
Correct.
the animal to the product.
I've
Okay.
used the deer stopper I have used for at other places that I know um, for over 25 years. You have to make sure that it's applied with consistency because it's real easy for new growth to come up that hasn't been sprayed, and that could be browsed.
I've been, it's been really great to learn from you about these different animal repellents and how they work and, their different applications. When you told me about this Trico Pro, the sheep fat, so there's a question about that.
Mhm.
So how much do you need to reply? You mentioned 30 days. So how often during this, like during the buck rub season, are you applying this and how many times?
Okay, great. So the concentrate of Trico Pro, it's the deer stopper that's every 30 days, whether it's a full concentrate or it's a non-concentrate um, diluted. The Trico Pro, if it's the concentrate is sprayed on the tree trunks, it is good for up to 6 months. So we were able to spray in August, and even during the main buck rub system, we've not had any other issues. So for herbivory, I would spray it again in the mid-spring.
Great. So even though it is expensive, the Trico Pro, it is effective for 6 months
Mhm.
for
Yes.
for the buck rub. Okay.
Yes, and the buck rub system, sorry, the buck rub timing is narrower than that. But
Mhm.
also look on at Cornell University. They did a study on this product and found it to be highly effective. So if you do some internet searches, you'll find more information about it, which is good to know. Yeah.
Great. Uh, so is the hedge trimmer better than a string trimmer?
So I think so because I can really cut things and control what I'm cutting and so forth. The string trimmer will work on herbaceous and stuff, but it scatters the stuff everywhere. And
Mhm.
I'm constantly replacing the string with this. I don't have to bend down. I have to change the string. It's just dependent on what people are comfortable using. My one coworker, he liked to use both for different applications. So yeah.
Mhm. Um, okay, we're getting through the questions here. That's
Sure.
good.
Yeah.
Let's see. With the vinegar that you use, the 30% horticultural vinegar, do you think it would work on winter creeper?
Yes, it does. I've sprayed it. The one that is tough is Agopodium, and that one I've had to spray multiple times because it just has those underground stolons. But the way that it works is it burns the foliage. So if there's lignin on the foliage, it will also burn through that, the higher the acidity. And you have to apply it often multiple times. With the mugwort, the big cut down, waited for the new growth to come up, hit that new growth one time, hit it a second time, and it's incredible how well it knocks the mugwort back. Really, really been very effective.
And then you're able to just plant into that area? Like you show
Oh
that
yes.
picture of the
So
grasses?
yep. So the thing with the vinegar is it hits the leaves, burns them, and it on a warm day in sun it's even best. But whatever remains evaporates. It doesn't change the acidity of the surface. It evaporates. It doesn't affect the soil. It's not once it burns the leaves, it evaporates, and it's that acidic reaction that is really taking its toll. But Once the stuff is taken out of there, meaning, the brown, and I've got it under control, I have planted, even though smaller bits of mugwort are still coming up, getting your density of your plant material in there, natives, including doing layering with sedges, with things like wood rush, all those kind of
Oh,
things.
there we
Doing the
go.
layers makes a
Got a little
big
frozen
difference.
screen here.
What's that? What's that? Is can you hear me, Ree?
Yeah, I think maybe Julie's screen
Oh,
is frozen.
okay, got
Um,
it.
yeah, no problem.
Okay, yeah. Uh,
The Yeah, go
or if you could access the chat if there's any
ahead.
others. Uh,
Yeah, it looks like Julie's back. Yeah,
Yep,
go ahead.
sorry. I don't know where I went. The vinegar got to me. That's where we left off. The vinegar, somebody was asking, is it going to impact the microorganisms in the soil?
So it hits the leaf surface and the mulch. If any hits the soil surface, it is going to evaporate. And that's what's great about the product. Now, if I was to drench the soil, not just mist it or put a light coat on, that'd be a different story. The acid would go down into the soil and could do a lot of harm. I've heard of people thinking, oh, I'll just drench it with vinegar and that'll kill the roots too. But we know
Yeah,
I would not recommend that whatsoever. I'm trying to
yeah.
build soil microbiology, so yeah.
So speaking of
Salt would
building,
be the number one thing that would be long term if the product was used with salt.
okay. So speaking of building the soil, so when you use biochar, how are you
Mm.
adding that? Is it a little bit every time? Is it a lot?
Yeah, we tried to be somewhat scientific about exacting amounts. I found for a quart, just a maybe a quarter cup, for a gallon size plant, a cup or so, and it's really very relative. But if every time you're planting in that garden and you're putting it in, you're adding more, and it's not the kind of product you're going to overuse. Now, over time, with regular planting and putting it in there, you'll have made a great place for the soil microbes to be able to be and to actively work with the roots, because most soil microbes interact with the root exudates that come off the roots. And so anything that can provide them with carbon or places to, I would say, reproduce and so forth, along with the roots, is going to be a plus. So I don't know the exact science behind it. I wish I knew more. So next, in my next life, I'm going to be a soil chemist. But anybody that finds out more about that or could direct more information, I'm always willing to learn more about the soil interactions with microbes. So
There's a lot to learn there, I think, right? For all of us.
yes,
Um,
exactly.
so let's see, native trees. The question is about in the meadow. So do you let sort of the things that come up, sort of that meadow, do you let that succession happen? Or do you simply, do you guide it? Do you let the natives come
Yes,
up?
yes. So it's a stewarded succession. So um,
Mhm.
one of the key aspects of that is Aaron and myself will look at the trees that we wish to put in there and put them in at different stages of their lives. Some young, much younger, some a little older, like that sycamore. And that then we replicate what we would see in our local woodland, things like that. And there have been a few things that have come up. In fact, the other day I had said to Aaron, "Oh, there's a really nice Cercis that came up from seed, and it is doing beautifully." So I asked about accessioning that into our collection, and it would make sense to do something like that. But now, in any other kind of areas, if you know you're getting a lot of oak trees coming in, or something else that you really do want to encourage you could absolutely allow that to happen selectively. Yep. And they're going to probably get established and be in the best shape they can be by starting that young. Yep.
Great. Let's see. Just a question. Someone curious about the green burial. Is it cheaper than traditional, or can you tell us something about
Sure.
that?
Well, that's a question everybody asks. It is in some ways because there isn't the cost of purchasing a monument. You purchase the burial rights to the space, and then typically there is no cement vault as there is with metal coffins and all that. So the price is less than what a full funeral, burial, and preparation can be. But as far as total numbers, I don't really know what they are. If you're interested in like various costs of the different areas, you can speak with someone in our family services division, which is at the funeral home, and they can answer those questions well for you. But I would say then many of the traditional burials, there's no formaldehyde used. The coffin is a wood coffin or wicker. It can be a shroud, much less expensive than a casket or cement vault would be.
Great. I think we have time for one more. Let's see. So are you finding that the native plants begin to flop as you build the soil richness? Are
Yes.
you building up the soil health because the goal is ultimately for mature woods?
Yes. So that is an excellent question that I'm glad they brought up because things like schizocarium, like lean soils, and they're the first part of the succession. And often in highly disturbed areas or open areas, the organic matter content in soils is very low. Our soil there was highly manipulated, very low in organic matter. And so I went the leaf mulch route. Now, as it evolves and goes into a woodland, there would be certainly fewer of those meadow type plants, and also more ferns and woodland ephemerals used. And yes, by then the addition of the leaf mulch would help with that. And I don't, I put it down as a preventative and certainly for the soil to build the structure of the soil. But there comes to a point where it can be too rich. And I know it sounds crazy to some people, but when I worked on the Woods Path at Mount Cuba Center, the soil was so high in organic matter that certain species thrived and loved it, and others it was just too rich. And so it's, I would say, reaching the happy medium. If you have a meadow that you want to keep going, the leaf mulch can help initially with plantings, but it wouldn't be something I would do year after year after year after year. Usually cut downs, making it fine when it's cut down, is enough organic matter to add to not to return nutrients, but not increase the nutrients.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for that wonderful presentation, and
Pleasure.
the chance to talk and ask questions has been really helpful.
Great.
Um,
Well, I appreciate everyone attending, and so I think we're going to we'll have the discussion session next, I believe, right?
well, actually, we
Did we
use
get?
this space here for that,
Okay,
and
you got it. Okay,
yeah, so we didn't have to change rooms. So the last thing will be the keynote presentation that will start at 3. So I want to
great.
give folks a chance to have a break.
Okay,
But I can certainly leave this room open for a few more minutes, but I do have to
yep,
we do have to direct people to the other room.
sure,
But
Greg.
I did
Okay,
want to thank everybody for being here with us today. And just to let you know, remind you, please fill out your evaluations. You'll find those at the tab for this room at the top. And let you know about tomorrow, the in-person session. So if you're in the Philadelphia area, we hope you can join us at Stoneleigh. If you're in Massachusetts, you have the Cape. And and then also at Tower. So thank you all again. And at 3 o'clock, it'll be the keynote with Banu I knew I was Subarami. It's the end of the day. Subramaniam. There you go. I did it. And her presentation is going to be called For the Love. That'll be a wonderful way to hope to see you there. So, did anybody want to raise their hand if there was anything else at the end? Otherwise, I will conclude this room. I'll just wait for a minute to see.
I had a quick question about like, how do
Yeah.
you approach other cemeteries about potentially beginning these newer ways with green burial? Like, there's a lot of traditional cemeteries around me, potentially talking to them about this concept. Have you done that with other cemeteries, or do you have any advice?
Oh, okay. Yeah. The reason that we implemented green burial was out of demand by the public. And because we looked at the different models that were available, they were all to go with green. The traditional meaning of that, it was in its not only in the burial process, but also in its stewardship. So we're a hybrid cemetery because we offer both. Um, there are some cemeteries that could perhaps have the acreage to do that and the ability. It's maintenance that can be a challenge. But if they have an endowment system, money can be set aside specifically for its care and having the right individual and team to care for it. So it would be approaching the cemetery and asking, really. That's a number one thing. I know I'm going to be meeting at some point with people from Delaware that are interested in opening a green burial cemetery, and you can open it and have it without having green burial certification. It's just that the certification means all the green burial areas will be consistent throughout the industry. So, but if someone is ever wanting to know more, someone from a board of a cemetery, they can always contact us, speak with our CEO, myself, our breeder manager, or anyone they wish about this. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Mike, thank you. All right.
Great.
Great. Okay. Oh, well, that was I really enjoyed that. So,
Very good.
yeah.
We're
Okay.
gonna have plant skid available at Redbud
Ooh,
this season.
great. Great.
It actually just
Excellent.
arrived today.
Yay. Yay. Yep. Exactly. Yeah, it's good to hear. Yeah, well, I'll definitely be catching up with you guys again soon because I want to talk to Tom about the day we both do the
Oh
yard
yeah,
talk.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so it's
definitely.
exciting. Yep.
Okay.
So,
All
um,
right. Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Greg. And I'll see you back in the main room if you're joining us for the keynote. You won't want to miss it. All right. I'm gonna close this room now. All right. Bye, everybody.
bye.